Assalamu alaikum. Today I'd like to share with you an alternative assessment that you can do with your students. So we had assessment this week, and we all know that the moment kids hear the word assessment, they start getting anxious. Some kids have nervous breakdowns when it's assessment time or in the classroom and they're doing an assessment. And we as teachers or as adults, whenever we hear the word assessment, we immediately think of a paper, pencil kind of test. But assessments can be in many different forms. And this is one of the forms of assessment I did today with my class, and they had a lot of fun. So we've been doing Surah Fat this year. And in my class, I have two different age groups. I have 8-9-year-olds, and then I have 12-13-year-olds. The 12-13-year-olds come to my class as mentors for the 8-9-year-olds. So I had to look for a different kind of assessment this time. Usually I do different assessments for the 12-13-year-olds and the 8-9-year-olds. Our Qur'an session is divided into 1 hour, and the mentors, the 12-13-year-old boys, come to my class for the first half hour. So during that time I assess them in the recitation where all of us, my mentees, or rather my students and myself, are listening to them. And then for the other half hour, once the mentors go back to their class, I assess my mentees. And it can be anywhere from recitation to finding the rules and all of that. This time I thought I'll do an activity with the students whereby the mentors and the mentees are doing the same thing. So what I did was I took Surah Fat, which is the surah that they've been working on this year, and I took the first 15 verses of the surah and printed it out and then cut each verse into strips. And I gave each student 1 or 2 strips. So if the verses were long, they got 1 strip. If the verses were short, they would get 2 strips. And then we started off with the first student, the student who thought he or she had the first verse. They had to say, oh, I think I have the first verse. They had to recite the verse in front of everyone, whereby I was checking their pronunciation as well as application of the tajweed rules that we've been learning. And then they would have to go up and stick it. So all you need for this activity is a big sheet of paper, and this is like the huge post-it papers. It has the glue part on one side that you can stick on the whiteboard or on the wall, and it doesn't damage the paint. And or a manila sheet, any big piece of paper where you can stick these verses on. And basically, like I said, the first student starts, they think they have the first verse, they have to read it, and I tell them if they're correct or not, and then they stick the verse on the big piece of paper. So I gave them each a glue stick to do that. And I also told them that if they know that they're next, so when the first person goes up and the other person knows, oh, my verse is next, they should start gluing. This also saves time because we only had half an hour to do this activity. And they went ahead and did that. Each child would say, okay, I think I have the next verse. They would recite the verse, come up and stick it. And this is the way students of all ages were, participating, from the 8-year-olds to the 13-year-olds, because I have these 2 age groups. And we went over the verses, and obviously when they were wrong, I would say, oh, you're wrong. And then the other person would say, oh, I think I have it. And we just went on until we had all 15 verses.
Nope. Oh, 6. That's 6. That's 6. I knew it.
All right, Salim.
I knew it.
Nay.
I think it's. I don't know.
What do you think it is?
Wait. Is it?
لِيُدْخِلَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Who has it?
Oh, me.
Hey!
Ali! Oh my God!
And then once the mentors left, I had my own students. I think there are about 7 of them. And we went over the rules with them. We learned about the rule of ikhfa last week, and I told them that I'll give them an activity to look for the rules of ikhfa. So instead of giving them a separate activity, we used the same verses that we used for the first part of the class. And I told them, okay, you can come up. Each child got a turn to come up and point out one rule of ikhfa. So that's what you see, the highlighted bits are the students' work, that wherever they found an ikhfa, they went ahead and highlighted it. So this was their assessment. Through this activity, it was fun for them because they were working together, finding the sequence. At the same time, I tested their recitation. So each child, when they were reciting the verses, I would check for their pronunciation and the application of rules, and as soon as they were done, I would tell them the rules that they failed to apply or the pronunciation that they need to work on. This is assessment. And then the second part, when they were finding the rules of ikhfa, again, I was assessing whether they have comprehended the rule, and if they need help. I had a student who just did not understand, and he was absent last week. So that tells me, because assessment is not only for the students, assessment is for the teacher. It tells you whether you have taught the students, correctly, or if you need to go over the material again. So assessment is really both ways. You're assessing yourself as a teacher, as well as finding out what the student has understood and what the student still needs help with. So down here, I have a student who highlighted a rule of izhar. So I let him highlight it. As soon as he had highlighted it, I was like, so what's the next letter? What's the letter of ikhfa? And he saw it and was like, oh, alif. Oh no, he immediately realized that he was wrong. So we're looking for ikhfas.
Wait, does shadda count?
Would shadda be ikhfa?
Oh, when it goes stuff.
No. Shadda on the noon and mim would be ghunna. If you don't find it, then
I'm gonna go for the one that I found.
So what letter did you highlight after the nun sakin?
Oh!
Alif is?
Alif is not.
What is it? Izhar. Okay. So it was a fun activity. They had fun doing it. It was not even a fun activity. It was a fun assessment, rather. It helps to reduce that anxiety, and especially for the mentors, once they reach that age of 12, 13 year, they start losing interest coming to madrasa, and they just don't want to be there. They're there because their parents are sending them. So I wanted to know from them. So before they left my class, they had to tell me one reason why they liked or did not like this activity, and they even gave me suggestions on what I can do for the next assessment. So all of them really liked the activity, and one of the main things was because of the interaction. So they liked, I keep saying activity because I keep telling my students that we're just doing activities. Every week is an assessment week, so don't think of this as an assessment. That's why I keep saying activity. But this was an alternative assessment, and you can, use different kinds of alternative assessments instead of the traditional paper pencil one. So I hope you get some ideas from this and learn a different way of assessing your students and are able to implement that in your teaching. Thank you.